Three bone-chilling true horror stories that haunt spring forever. Spring arrived, bringing a fragile beauty that masked dark secrets just beneath the surface. In the quiet town of Elmswood, three chilling tales echoed through the whispering trees and chilly winds. Rumors of hauntings swirled like restless spirits, gripping the hearts of locals with fear. Shadows flickered in the corners of homes, and each creak in the night felt like a warning, but no one knew how truly terrifying this season could be. The first story began with a young girl named Lily, whose laughter danced through the air like a sweet melody. Until one afternoon, while playing in her yard, she stumbled across a hidden well, overgrown with ivy and dirt. Her curiosity drew her closer. Local legends spoke of lost souls trapped inside, and that day, her laughter turned to a scream that echoed for miles. When her family rushed outside, all they found was the empty well, gaping wide like a hungry mouth. They searched for days, but Lily vanished, swallowed by the earth like a secret best kept. The townsfolk still tell her story, hoping that if they whisper it softly enough, she'll hear them and return. But the well stands untouched, the ground above cold and hard, as if holding its breath. Then there was the tale of the wandering fog. Each evening in spring, a thick mist rolled down from the mountain, curling through the streets like a living thing. People claimed it carried voices crying, pleading. They'd see figures lurking just out of sight, shimmering shapes that dangled half in and half out of reality. One rainy night, Jake, a local, made his way home and found himself lost in that fog, hearing whispers that twisted his mind. As the darkness thickened around him, he stumbled upon a shadowy figure, its eyes empty voids. Panic surged through him, freezing his steps as he realized it was not just any spirit. It was someone he knew, a friend long since gone, beckoning him deeper into the mist. Each spring, people report similar encounters. They shiver at the thought of what lies beyond the familiar streets, lost in the fog forever, but the final story is perhaps the most haunting. Old Mrs. Morrison lived alone, a fixture in the neighborhood with her charming garden and warm smile. After a particularly harsh winter, her garden burst into life, flowers blooming like fireworks against the bare earth. But one afternoon, a terrifying change came over those blossoms. They began to whisper, or at least, that's what the neighbors claimed. One by one, they reported strange sounds coming from the garden, hushed conversations that danced through the air like moths drawn to a flame. When a group of teenagers dared to trespass, they heard it too low murmurs that twisted their insides. They ran, faces pale, hearts racing. Mrs. Morrison was never seen again after that. Her house still stands, the garden wild and tangled, full of flowers that hush when approached, as if guarding the secret of what really happened that spring. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As spring creeps on and darkness curls around, the people of Elmswood wonder what more lies hidden beneath the stillness of their quaint town. And as the story of Lily, the fog, and Mrs. Morrison floats through the air, they can't shake the feeling that the season isn't done with them yet. What else is waiting, hidden just out of reach, ready to awaken when the flowers bloom and shadows grow long? As the days grew warmer, a heavy tension settled over Elmswood. The stories of Lily, Jake, and Mrs. Morrison echoed through the townsfolk like a haunting refrain, but something else lingered. Whispers twisted through the breeze, and a palpable fear took hold. Rumors began to spread about a connection between the disappearances and a sinister force thought to dwell in the woods on the outskirts of town. That's where Todd, a curious teenager with a taste for adventure, decided to explore one evening. Armed with nothing more than a flashlight and a bravado that masked his rising fear, he ventured into the trees. His friends, too frightened to join him, dared him to go deeper, to unravel the mystery that surrounded the missing souls. As he walked, the air shifted, it became heavy, damp, yet electric, like before a storm. "I'll be fine," he called back, forcing a laugh that rang hollow. But everything felt wrong. The shadows stretched unnaturally, flickering in his flashlight's beam like taunting specters. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the once welcoming woods transformed into something else entirely. The gentle rustle of leaves took on a sinister tone, and the soft chirping of crickets fell silent, leaving an oppressive weight hanging in the air. Suddenly, Todd's flashlight flickered. Panic surged through him as he slapped it, but the light stubbornly faded. In the engulfing darkness, he froze, then he heard it. Quiet at first, a soft rustling, a faint whisper. A name floated to his ears, barely discernible. "Help me!" His heart raced. It couldn't be. The voice sounded intimately familiar. "Lily?" he called, choking back fear. "Is that you?" The whisper grew louder, pulling him like a puppet on strings. He followed it, against every instinct screaming for him to flee. Branches reached out like fingers, scratching at his arms, but he pushed forward, driven by an urgency he couldn't understand. Then he saw her. A ghostly figure, hazy and shimmering, stood just ahead, her blonde hair flowing like silk. "I'm here!" Todd shouted, hope igniting in his chest. But as he approached, her features twisted in anguish. Her eyes' empty voids mirrored the shadow he had seen before. "No, Todd, run!" she cried, her voice breaking, desperation clawing at him. But it was too late. Shadows materialized, thick and dark, swirling around him, wrapping him in a suffocating embrace that he struggled, gasping for air as the shadows whispered secrets of the woods, the truth behind those who went missing. Their voices echoed in his mind, a discordant symphony, drowning out his desperate thoughts. "Join us!" they chanted, a cruel invitation that sent chills racing down his spine. Just then, the ground beneath him shifted, pulling him down as more voices joined in the chorus. "Come play forever." Todd fought against the weight, the bitter truth creeping into his bones as he realized he was trapped in a nightmare worse than anything he could have imagined. He called out for his friends, but the desperate cries dissolved into the chilling laughter of the unseen figures. Back in town, his friends grew worried as hours passed. They gathered, huddled under flickering streetlights, whispering about what they had lost. Someone suggested they search the woods, but fear crept into their minds like poison. Yet, something pulled at them as the night deepened, something they couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, Todd felt the darkness closing in as he struggled to escape, feeling the grip of the shadows tightening around his throat. Would anyone come to save him, or was he about to become just another whisper in the woods? What if the very legends that haunted Elmswood were more than tales? What if there were deeper secrets hidden in those shadows, waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting? As morning approached, the forest held its breath, a pause in the thick air. Where would Todd end up, as a lost voice among the branches, or as a harbinger of a new wave of terror? The answer lingered just beyond the light that began to seep into the treetops. What secrets lay in wait, ready to devour anyone who dared to uncover them? The sun broke through the trees, spilling light onto the forest floor where shadows still lurked. But for Todd, the glimmer of hope offered by the dawn betrayed the dawning reality. The cold grip of darkness tightened, pulling him deeper into its embrace. Every minute of struggle felt like a lifetime. He couldn't breathe, the air thickened with despair. His confusion morphed into paralyzing fear. "Help!" he shouted, but only silence answered. The trees hunched closer, their twisted branches arching over him like skeletal hands ready to snap. He blinked, trying to shake off the haze clouding his mind. Was it the shadows causing this paralysis, or was it something more insidious? Suddenly, the whispers surged again, a cacophony of pleading voices. "You're one of us now," they chorused, laced with malice. Todd's heart pounded in his chest, echoing the sinister chant that clawed at his sanity. What did they mean? Was he really going to be trapped here forever? Just then, he caught sight of a glimmer at the edge of the clearing. He focused, fighting the darkness that wrapped around him. It flickered like a lie. Maybe it was a way out or perhaps just another trick. But Todd chose courage over despair and lunged toward the light. Each step was a battle, the ground seemed to buckle beneath him, as if the forest didn't want to let him go. His fingers grazed the edge of the illumination, a shimmering veil that pulsed with energy. He drew another step closer, and in an instant, the world shifted. Cold air enveloped him, pulling him free from the shadows, and he stumbled to the ground gasping, desperate for air. He lay there, heart racing, scanning the surroundings. He was no longer in the dark void of the woods. Bright sunlight poured in, illuminating the other side of a massive tree. But the relief was fleeting. In front of him stood something he never expected. The faces of Lily, Jake, and Mrs. Morrison, lifeless and pale, reflected a horror he couldn't comprehend. They stared back at him, mouths stretched in silent screams, their eyes fixating on something behind him. A chill raced down his spine. The voices returned, their whispers now clearer. "You brought us here, you must join us," they said, the echo folding into a wave of panic that threatened to drown him. Without thinking, Todd bolted, fear propelling him forward, leaving the wretched memories of his friends behind as he made his way through the labyrinth of trees. He could still feel the weight of unseen eyes following him, their hungry whispers drifting on the wind. His friends had gathered at the edge of the woods, their faces pale against the dark backdrop of the trees. "Todd!" they called, worry etched on their faces. The sight of them fueled something inside him, like oxygen to a flame. He stumbled into the clearing, breathless, every step feeling like a sprint toward safety, but when their eyes met, Todd knew something was wrong. The shadows that had chased him were a part of him now. He could feel the remnants of their grasp, the coldness of their promises trailing like smoke. "Where were you?" one friend gasped, panic rising as they realized he wasn't the same. Something had changed, something they couldn't yet see. With a heavy heart, Todd glanced back at the woods, knowing he had escaped, but at what cost? The whispers still lingered at the edges of his mind, like a familiar song you couldn't shake. "Join us." As he turned back to his friends, the feeling of dread settled in the pit of his stomach. What if the entity that took his friends was now lurking within him? And the shadows, they weren't finished yet. They remained silent as shadows crept closer, drawn to Todd, waiting for the moment of weakness. What lies ahead for him and his friends? The weight of the past or the promise of an even darker future? The forest darkened in the background, holding its breath for what was to come next. The oppressive air thickened around Todd, tightening around him like a vice. He could see the confusion etched on his friends' faces, but their expressions shifted into something more sinister. Fear clawed at his throat as he realized they were not merely worried, they were terrified of him. "Are you okay?" Lily asked, her voice trembling, as if speaking too loudly might awaken whatever lay just beyond the trees. "Yeah. I'm fine," Todd stammered, but the words felt hollow. He wasn't fine. The shadows coiled in his mind, whispering promises he couldn't ignore. The feeling of dread weighed heavier with each heartbeat, echoing the growing suspicion that something had followed him back. "Let us get out of here," Jake urged, looking nervously toward the dense forest. The air crackled with tension, and Todd sensed it too. They'd barely escaped this nightmare, yet it lingered, just beyond the shimmering edge of reality. But something inside him resisted the instinct to leave. A flicker of déjà vu raced through his mind. He had seen these faces, these terrified eyes before. They had been the last ones to dream before the darkness took them, and now they were stuck, caught between life and the veil of eternal shadow. The whispers swelled, churning like a tempest inside his head. "Join us. You owe us." The voices seemed to spill from his lips, unbidden, with a sickening certainty. He clawed at his temples, willing them to cease, but they only grew louder, each word steeped in madness. Lily's gaze fell upon Todd, and for just a moment, clarity flashed in her eyes. "Todd, what's wrong?" she asked, fear creeping in as she took a cautious step back. You don't sound like yourself." "Stop!" he shouted, and for a heartbeat, silence fell around them. But it was a fragile silence, the kind that birthed new horrors. In that stillness, the forest exhaled. The whispers transformed into laughter, a shrill, mocking cackle that echoed off the ancient trees, a sound of victory that curdled Todd's blood. "Go!" he yelled, but the command felt weak. Would they listen? Before he could further plead, shadows surged from the forest, long tendrils of darkness stretching toward him and his friends, weaving through the air with deliberate malice. Todd backed away, a burning need to protect them overwhelming everything else. "We need to leave now," he ordered, turning on his heel and sprinting ahead. His legs pumped furiously, fueled by raw desperation as they raced toward the edge of the forest. He could sense the shadows swirling, ready to snatch at their heels, ready to pull them back into that nightmare. The thrill of fear electrified him. But they were close now, closing in on the safety of the familiar world. Just as they broke free from the trees, Todd glanced back one last time. The forest stood still, momentarily shrouded in quiet, like it was biding its time, waiting for dusk to reclaim its dominion. "Did we?" Jake began, but Todd felt it before he heard it. The shadows spilled out from his own being, a dark mist that encircled him, binding him to the haunting past. In horror, Todd watched as his friends recoiled from the sudden chill in the air. I can't," he stammered, but the shadows twisted around him, forming shapes too grotesque to decipher. The screams of his friends echoed in his ears, mingling with the haunting whispers rising in volume from the depths of his mind. "Come back," they beckoned, "join us." With a gut-wrenching sense of inevitability, Todd recognized the truth. They weren't merely coming for him, they were coming for them all. "Please," he gasped, but the shadows clenched tighter. As the darkness surged forward, Todd found himself in a confrontation with his own soul. Would he sacrifice anything and everything to keep those he loved safe, or would he succumb to the sinister pull of the shadows? In that heartbeat, he realized they could not run from their fate. It would find them, no matter how far they tried to flee. And just when he thought the darkness would swallow them whole, a shattering scream pierced through the atmosphere, not from his lips, but from behind him. Could the darkness that had haunted him now turn to devour those he sought to protect? What would he have to sacrifice to save his friends and escape the encroaching shadows? The moment of truth was upon them, and Todd felt the wood of the forest resonate with a hungry anticipation. The air was thick with panic as Todd's heart pounded like a war drum. "No. Not like this!" he screamed, spinning around to face his friends. Their faces were etched with horror, eyes wide, mouths agape. A visceral chill ran down his spine at the sight. Lily clutched her arms, shivering against the icy breath of the darkness. "What did you bring back, Todd?" Her voice trembled, fragile as glass, and that question thundered in his mind. "I don't know," he shouted, desperation clawing at his insides. "But we need to." Before he could finish, the shadows lunged at them, spinning and twisting like a cyclone made of malice. It was no longer just a chill in the air, now it felt alive, roaring to life with an insatiable hunger that gripped Todd's throat. "Run!" Jake yelled, his eyes darting between Todd and the dark mass approaching them. The urgency in his voice brought Todd back to the present. They had to move. They bolted toward the open expanse, haunting echoes of laughter trailing behind like a distorted melody. Todd felt the weight of despair settle on his shoulders, each step forward a battle against the shadows reaching for him, for his friends. Desperation surged through him, but doubt crept in, twisting like a knife. "Lily! Jake!" Todd grunted, glancing over his shoulder, but the scene before him twisted into surreal horror. Shapes formed within the shadows, faces he recognized, faces from the past, friends he'd lost to the darkness he thought he'd escaped. "No, it can't be," he whispered, heart clenching in disbelief. "Keep going," Lily shouted, yanking on Todd's arm, pulling him toward a patch of moonlight spilling across the ground. The light felt warm and safe, a protective barrier against the darkness, but as they reached the edge of illumination, the shadows flickered and surged forward. Todd stumbled to a halt, rooted by the realization, a dark truth that dripped like venom from his mind: he was never meant to escape. "What are you doing?" Jake yelled, panic-stricken. I can't leave them, Todd murmured. They're lost just like me. Don't you dare. Lily gasped, her eyes narrowing in horror. She could see the conflict churning within him, the desire to save their lost souls battling against the instinct to survive. Stay back. He shouted, as tendrils of darkness coiled around him, pulling him towards that familiar abyss. It whispered promises in his ear, dark assurances that fed his self-doubt. You belong with us, Todd. He felt himself drawn closer, a magnetic pull he couldn't explain, but it was there, tantalizing and terrible. In that split second, he faced a choice: abandon everything and embrace the shadows, or fight against the very essence that yearned for his surrender. A sudden surge of strength propelled him forward, driven by the needs of his friends. I want to do this. He screamed, tearing himself free of the ache, the darkness clawing for him, but it felt like pulling a hand from a blender. With a primal roar, he reached for Jake, grasping him tightly. We need to wake up. You both have to wake up. Jake's eyes widened as he saw Todd's struggle, the battle raging in him. Todd could see that he was losing it all, the ethereal chorus of shadows threatening to extinguish his hope completely. With a last desperate push, Todd faced the dark swirling mass. I'm not yours. He bellowed, and he felt in that moment, every ounce of his love for his friends ignite within him like a beacon. But then he saw something. A figure cloaked in darkness emerged, its face obscured, eyes like scorching coals. You think you can escape? It hissed, the voice a chilling echo of every loss he'd ever faced. Fear swelled in Todd's chest again, but alongside it something else. A spark of defiance ignited. Because there was one last thing he had to do. But was it enough? As the shadowed figure raised an arm, a grotesque grin splitting its face, Todd understood. The battle wasn't over. Far from it. Each breath seemed to echo with the weight of despair yet to come. What price would he have to pay to truly protect them, his friends, his very soul? A choice loomed ahead. Darker than the void itself, and he stood at the precipice. Would he throw everything away to save those he loved? The darkness embraced them, and with it, Todd plunged into the unknown. What lay beyond could be salvation or annihilation. Did they still have a chance, or had they walked into the ultimate trap? The world around Todd twisted like a nightmare come to life. The darkness pulsed with malevolent energy, hungry for their fear, more alive than anything he'd ever faced. The shadows were not merely a force but an intelligent entity, alive with vengeance and despair. Hold on to each other. Todd yelled, his voice barely a whisper against the roar of chaos. He gripped Lily's hand tightly, glancing at Jake, who stood frozen, eyes wide with terror. Confronted by the figure of darkness, Todd felt the weight of his friends' lives hanging in the balance. Do you see it? Lily's voice was thin, fragile yet tinged with an unyielding resolve. We can't let it separate us. Just then, the shadow lunged, tendrils of darkness snaking through the air. Todd felt the sharp, cold grip close around his arm, pulling him toward the waiting maw of despair. Lily! Jake! He screamed, but the shadows drowned out his voice, their chorus mocking, taunting, promising safety in surrender. Fight it! Jake shouted, shaking off the fear that threatened to consume him. We're stronger together. He lunged forward, his voice the spark igniting Todd's fading hope. With newfound strength, they pulled against the shadows, a united front against the malevolent tide. But the darkness retaliated, splitting apart into a dozen contorted faces, ghostly images of the past, each one crying out with accusations, each voice a haunting reminder of the choices left undone. You forsook us, they wailed, echoes of former friends who had fallen into despair. No. I didn't, Todd yelled, battling the guilt that surged in his chest. I'm still fighting. Each pulse of the shadows brought doubts flashing through his mind. What if they never escaped? What if this was it? The moment heightened the pain, claws of dread sinking deeper into his heart. But defiance rose within him like a flame. Let them go. He demanded, eyes blazing. You don't have power over us. The struggle felt monumental, each effort demanding everything he had. As he fought against the weight of sorrow, he could feel the bonds of friendship entwined with their shared pain pushing back against the shadows. Lily squeezed Todd's hand. We believe in you. We believe in us. Those words ignited something in Todd, burning brighter than the darkness surrounding them. As if aware of their budding resistance, the shadowed figure snarled, shifting its form, morphing into a monstrous version of Todd himself, an embodiment of all his fears. You think you can escape who you are? It taunted, voice dripping with disdain. No. Todd shouted, stepping forward. I'm not you. I will never be you. Suddenly, all three friends felt an unnatural rush of energy. The oncoming tide of despair seemed to hesitate. Now. Together. Jake yelled, all hesitation gone. They joined hands tightly, closing their eyes against the torment of the shadows, focusing instead on the warmth of their friendship. We are more than our fears. In an instant, a bright light emanated from their hands. It poured forth, pushing back against the darkness, illuminating their surroundings in a fierce white glow. The wails of the lost souls faded, their forms dispersing into mist as the shadows screamed in agony, their hold weakening, but just as they began to feel the sweet sensation of freedom, the figure screeched a final, deafening roar. This is merely a respite. You can't run forever. A crack formed beneath their feet, a gaping void rearing its head and threatening to swallow them whole. Todd's heart raced. We have to jump. Lily screamed, panic threading through her voice. Right now. Jake echoed, his firm grip on Todd's hand anchoring him. With no time to ponder, they leaped into the blinding light, feeling the world disintegrate around them. But as consciousness faded, Todd couldn't shake off the chilling thought what lay on the other side. Had they escaped the darkness, or had they only evaded something far worse? The questions gnawed at him as the light consumed them, uncertainty cloaked in an iron grip. Was this the end of their flight from the dark, or merely the beginning of a new terror? As the blinding light faded, Todd felt a sudden jolt, like hitting the ground after a long fall. He gasped as the coolness of the air wrapped around him, sharp and crisp, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness he had just left behind. What, where are we? Jake's voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. Todd's eyes adjusted, but all he could make out at first were shadowy shapes looming around them. It felt alien, unsettling, as if he had stepped through a portal into a different world entirely. Shadows seemed to cling to the edges of his vision, shifting with restless energy. Lily? He called, his heart hammering at the sudden silence that hung in the air. Right here. Her voice was tighter, more strained than before. Todd turned, relief washing over him as he saw her standing a few feet away, Jake beside her. But there was something different about her expression. Fear flickered across her face, a raw vulnerability that Todd hadn't seen before. It sent a chill coursing through him. What is this place? She asked, her voice quivering. I don't know, Todd replied, scanning their surroundings once more. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. He could see now that they stood in the remnants of what looked like an abandoned amusement park. Rusting rides loomed ominously in the distance, the sounds of silence echoed off decayed structures, long forgotten by time. The bright colors of the bumper cars had faded into dull shades of gray, and weeds snaked through the cracks of the cracked pavement. It felt like they stepped into a graveyard of joy, where laughter had long been replaced by memories steeped in decay. Maybe this is a dream. Maybe we're still in the shadows, Jake suggested, a nervous edge in his voice. I don't think it's a dream. I think we're here, Todd said slowly, unease crawling up his spine. Suddenly, a flickering sign caught the corner of his eye. It read, Welcome to yesterday. The words hung ominously in the air, sending chills down his neck. Just then, the air shifted, laden with an almost tangible energy, and Todd felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. It was as if the park itself had awakened, resonating with an echo of things best left undisturbed. Let us get out of here. Lily urged, urgency lacing her tone. Before they could move, a low rumbling sound vibrated through the ground, and from the shadows of the Ferris wheel, a figure emerged, draped in shadows, emanating an aura of dread. The whispers returned, intertwining with the rustling leaves, voices rising, hushed yet insistent. You abandoned us, they hissed, growing louder, reverberating off the empty rides. You left us behind. Todd felt a heavy weight in his chest. These voices, they belonged to the friends he had lost, the ones the darkness had taken. Stop it! Todd shouted, the guilt piercing through him like a knife. We didn't mean to, but as the shadows thickened, the figure stepped closer, its form twisting and contorting, revealing the faces of those he'd once known, their expressions twisted in torment. You can't escape your past, Todd. You will pay. Without warning, the ground shook again, and the shadows surged toward them, thick and hungry, promising retribution. Run! Jake screamed, grabbing Todd's arm and pulling him toward the nearest exit, but it felt as if the ground itself was conspiring against them, the pavement ripping and cracking beneath their feet. The atmosphere enveloped them in a suffocating grip. The monstrous figure loomed closer, its mouth opening in a grotesque smile, stretching wide like a gaping abyss. Where will you run? It taunted, and Todd felt his pulse quicken, dread clawing at his throat. Just as panic threatened to swallow him whole, a flicker of memory flashed in his mind. If they faced this evil together, they might overcome it. We can't let it divide us. He yelled. I know. Lily shouted back, determination shining through her fear. The shadows screeched as they gathered force around them, the figure lunging forward with haunting speed. Together! Jake shouted, and together they formed a circle, locking arms with each other. But would it be enough? As they closed their eyes against the overwhelming darkness, Todd wondered, could their bond withstand the onslaught, or would it break under the weight of the past? Would they find the strength to confront their demons or be lost to the shadows forever? As the horrifying laughter echoed around them, Todd realized the true battle was just beginning. The shadows froze, their furious charge halting inexplicably, as if a string had been pulled taut. An eerie silence enveloped the trio, thick with anticipation. Todd held his breath, the weight of the moment bearing down on him like a vice. Suddenly, a flare of searing light erupted from their joined hands as they stood in a circle. It crackled, almost alive, illuminating the twisted faces before them, echoes of a happier time now marred by pain. What is happening? Jake gasped, eyes wide in disbelief, the light dancing eerily across their worried expressions. I think we're pushing back. Lily cried, her voice laced with unexpected bravery. The light swirled around them, forming a protective barrier against the encroaching darkness, but the figure staggered, the faces twisting and blurring in the light's radiance. A chorus of whispers erupted, angry and desperate, clawing at their resolve. Foolish children! It roared, shaking the ground beneath them. You can't erase your mistakes. You must pay. With every word, the light flickered, struggling against the mounting shadows. Todd's heart hammered in rhythm with the pulsing energy around them. This has to mean something. Stay strong. He urged, squeezing Lily and Jake's hands tighter. Moments felt like hours as they battled against the darkness, memories flooding back to Todd, faces he once knew, laughter that once warmed his heart. We're not leaving anyone behind. We can do this. He shouted, drawing strength from their memories, each joyful moment a weapon against despair. The shadows writhed, furious at their defiance. You think nostalgia can save you? It hissed, lunging at them, sharp tendrils reaching out like skeletal fingers. Hold on. Hold on. Lily shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The light flared, a blinding beacon of hope that lit up the twisted forms around them. Then, just as it seemed they might be overcome, Todd felt it, a connection to something bigger, a bond forged through loss but empowered by love. Remember us for who we were. He roared, the glow pulsing brighter. A moment of pure clarity followed. Todd caught a glimpse of their friends laughing, vibrant, untouched by the darkness. They were not just memories but reminders of the joy that once filled their lives. With one final push, the energy swelled, and the light erupted outward, consuming the malevolent figure. Yells echoed from the shadows, cries of betrayal and anguish as the darkness retreated, forced back by the light of their unity. Just as suddenly as it began, the howling ceased. The trio stood catching their breath, the remnants of the shadowy figure disappearing like smoke in sunlight. The amusement park was quiet once more, eerily calm, but as they stepped back, the air shimmered uneasily, a flicker of uncertainty dancing before them. A new sound broke through the facade of silence, a distant, rhythmic ticking, like a clock counting down. "What now?" Jake whispered, dread creeping back into his voice. The ground quaked again, not with rage but with something more insidious. The rides creaked as if awakening from a long slumber. "We're not done," Todd muttered, eyes scanning the horizon, where shapes in the shadows began to stir once more. "What did we just unleash?" Lily breathed, her eyes wide as tendrils of fog snaked through the park, coiling tightly around their legs. With urgency and desperation clawing at their throats, they realized they had merely scratched the surface of this haunting place. "What if we didn't just confront our past?" Todd said, breathless and wide-eyed. "What if something worse lies beneath? What if we opened a door we can't close?" As a distant laughter echoed through the park, sending chills down their spines, they braced themselves together knowing they had to uncover what dark revelation awaited them. A thick fog rolled in, wrapping around Todd, Lily, and Jake like a heavy blanket. Each breath felt heavy, the air almost electric, charged with something they couldn't pinpoint. The laughter, distant yet haunting, echoed through the empty rides, a cruel tease under the sickly sweet scent of popcorn that lingered. "What is that?" Jake shouted, his voice trembling. He peered into the fog, seeing nothing but swirling shadows. The hairs on the back of his neck bristled as he felt an unseen presence watching them. Suddenly, the ticking grew louder, pounding against their ears like a warped heartbeat. Each tick reverberated within them, filling their chests with dread. They stumbled back instinctively, the sense of safety they had briefly tasted shattered. "Maybe we should," Lily began, but a piercing shriek interrupted her, a sound devoid of humanity. It echoed from the depths of the park, sharp and mournful, warning them against whatever lay ahead. "Stay close!" Todd shouted, gripping their hands fiercely. The trio began moving deeper into the shadows, the light that had been their shield now flickering like a candle on the verge of snuffing out. With each step, they felt the pull of the dark forces gathering around them, alive, watching, hungry. "Over there." Jake pointed, his eyes wide as he noticed a carousel in the distance, its horses frozen mid-gallop, caught in a moment of joy now twisted in despair. The music, once a light-hearted melody, warped and echoed, laden with sorrow. "We need to check it out." With shaky legs, they reached the carousel, its colors faded and chipped, a ghost of what it once had been. Todd could barely breathe as he eyed the horses, their expressions grotesque, faces marred by memories of abandonment. "This place is a graveyard for fun," he whispered, his voice laced with fear. As they circled the carousel, the ticking reached a fever pitch, pulsing in sync with their racing hearts. It felt like a countdown to something inevitable. "This isn't just about us anymore," Lily said, her voice soft but strong. "We have to figure out what it wants. What we really unleashed." Jake squinted through the mist, his mind racing. "What if we can find the source? Maybe if we face it head-on, we can stop this, whatever it is." Before anyone could respond, the ornate lights of the carousel flickered to life, casting shadows that danced madly upon the ground. The horses began to move slowly, creaking and groaning, their heads snapping to life as the grinding music began to play a distorted waltz that sent shivers racing down their spines. From somewhere in the mist, a figure emerged, cloaked in darkness but with an outline that felt eerily familiar. Todd's heart sank as recognition dawned. "It's one of us," he choked out, taking a step back. The figure tilted its head, its features obscured, but even without clear vision, an unsettling familiarity settled over him. "You called me," it whispered, a voice he didn't want to believe. You opened the door. Lily gasped, stepping away from the edge, where the darkness pooled and eddied like dark water. What do you want? The phantom figure chuckled, a sound that sent chills skittering up their spines. To reclaim what was lost, to gather what is owed. The game has only just begun. In that moment, the carousel spun faster, the music escalating, drowning out their fears. Shadows surged around them, thick and suffocating that as everything spun into chaos. Todd realized with a cold jolt this was just an amusement park, it was a trap, and they were the bait. They had to escape. They had to figure out how to close that door before it claimed them too, but as the laughter dissolved into the cacophony of the carousel, one question rattled in Todd's mind: how many others were trapped here, waiting for their chance to play? With a creeping dread settling in their bones, they set forth, determined to confront this nightmare and find a way to break the cycle. But in the distance, a deeper sound pulsed through the laughter and music, a sinister clock, counting down to their reckoning. What would happen when it struck midnight? The clock continued its relentless ticking, a constant reminder that time was not on their side. Todd, Lily, and Jake could feel the vibrations of fear coursing through their veins as shadows danced menacingly around them. Panic surged anew with every beat. They had to act, and fast. Let's find the center of this place, Todd urged, his voice steadier than he felt. Lily and Jake nodded, determination weaving through their growing dread. As they pressed forward, the darkness thickened, suffocating the air around them. The silhouettes of children's laughter echoed mockingly, a haunting lullaby concocted from their deepest fears. What does it mean to gather what is owed? Jake wondered aloud, dread tightening his chest. Maybe it means the shadows want us to pay for something we've done, Lily breathed, her eyes widening. What if they're after our memories? They stopped, the carousel spinning wildly in the backdrop. Shadows whipped around them like a tempest, taunting with every swirl. Todd flexed his fingers, feeling the weight of their memories pressing in on him. Memories are what connect us to everything we've lost, Todd mused. But if we fight for them with everything we have, maybe we can reverse what's happening. A flicker of hope flared in Todd's chest, and a plan began to take shape. We need to focus on what we value most, our strongest memories, and use that light. In that moment, the ground trembled beneath their feet as the phantom figure emerged from the fog again, its form coiling like smoke. You cannot escape your past, children. It is your truth, and I will reclaim it. Screams of the lost echoed along with the carousel music crescendoing into a fever pitch. The shadows, hungry and relentless, rippled toward them. No! Todd shouted, courage inflating within him. We won't let you take anything from us. Remember who we were. Lily shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Those we love are what matter, our joy, our laughter, our bonds. As they pointed their hands toward the shadows, light erupted from within them, illuminating the faces of loved ones frozen in time, moments of purest joy spilling forth. Every laugh, every hug, every shared sunset blossomed within the sphere of light. Each memory burst life into the chilling void around them as the shadows recoiled, wailing against the vibrance. But the darkness was not ready to back down. You think memories can save you? You will face their wrath. The shadows engulfed the light for a moment, twisting it into fleeting glimpses of despair. Todd felt it then, the weight of loss, the grief of abandonment surged in torrents. His resolve trembled as seductive whispers latched tight around his mind. Join us, experience the sorrow of forever. Todd fought against the tide, stuffing each memory back into his heart. No. We choose to remember happiness. He shouted defiantly, as Lily and Jake joined their hands again, another wave of brilliant light erupting. We believe in the power of love. They shouted in unison, their voices harmonizing against the encroaching darkness. The shadows howled like a beast, thrashing violently as the light began expanding. And with each moment, as the carousel screeched and the laughter transformed to rage, the trio fought harder, weaving a tapestry of vibrant memories in the face of despair. Above them, the massive clock started ticking faster. The pendulum swung with ominous purpose. What happens if it strikes midnight? Todd yelled, panic edging into his voice. Everything you love will be lost. The haunting figure screeched as if echoing a prophecy. No. Todd persisted, pouring every ounce of hope into his voice. We cherish our connection. The shadows lurched, twisting and clenching around them like a painful embrace. But Todd felt something break within him, a surge of faith ignited, ripping through the pain, igniting the power coursing through every memory they decrafted together. The carousel spun furiously, the music transforming into an anthem of hope. The spirits of lost laughter flooded the dark veil, banishing the shadows deeper into the abyss. Tension thickened, merging with their incandescent memories, and the shadows screeched as they became consumed in the luminous wave, and all at once, there was a stillness and incredible silence that felt like a deep breath after an interminable fight. Their united light dispelled the dark, shattering the phantom figure into shards of swirling mist. They stood, hearts racing, as the amusement park transformed, the laughter returning, colors bursting back into life. Did we do it? Jake whispered. I think we did, Lily breathed, still holding Todd's hand tightly, looking around as the shadows dissolved, but as they began to turn and leave, a flicker of uncertainty skittered through Todd's mind. But what about those still lost? He looked back, knowing they could never fully escape the shadows without acknowledging their past, without reconciling with those they had lost. Let us remember them. Not with sorrow, but with love, Todd insisted, turning back toward the fading echoes of laughter. Every memory teaches us. We're still whole together. The trio gathered their strength and made a solemn promise as they stepped into the threshold of sunlight breaking through the mist, forever changed but victorious. As they left the park behind, they felt lighter, ready to face the future, their hearts forever linked by shared love and unyielding purpose. The clock's ticking sounded now like a heartbeat, as though they had found the rhythm of hope they thought lost forever, and as the sun set over Elmswood, casting vibrant colors across the horizon, they forged ahead, hand in hand, ready for whatever awaited them next. That if you felt the chill of Elmswood, or if the tension of Todd, Lily, and Jake's tale moved you, then listen up. You need to hit that subscribe button now. Don't miss a single moment of the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button for support. It fuels our fire to keep bringing you these spine-tingling tales, and I want to hear from you. Flood the comments below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the journey, because your voice matters. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with 5 friends who need this conclusion in their lives. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Let us grow this community together.